Good morning. Good morning, all. Welcome. Welcome to James True Live. I'm James True, and I'm alive. And we decided to call the show that. When you ask we, you're going to find out today who we is. We is 3 different layers that splintered into 7 different layers that then coagulated again into a greater being. This is a nautilus of who you are and who I am. And we're going to be discovering that today. I assume all the audio is good. Thank you, Mared Moth, for the reverb warning again for the 3rd time in a row after working so many hours on my intro. I've decided to play it reverb into you. Everything should be functioning now, though. I can see both chats. I'm under the impression that my levels are good because I don't see any red. But please let me know if there's any kind of issues like that. Thank you very much. Happy, beautiful Wednesday. And glad to see you guys here. We are going to talk today about the reptilians. Let me tell you about the reptilians, why don't you? Last week I had one of the most stimulating conversations that I've had in a long time about, really just in general, actually. We talked about the reptilians, and that was a little bit loud. I was specifically asked, why don't you talk about the reptilians? And I realized that I don't talk about why I don't talk about the reptilians. And I wanted to get into that today because if you look at David Icke as an example, here's someone that talks about the reptilians and has a lot of success doing so. David Icke unravels a lot of thought forms for people. It brings people a lot of comfort to adopt that kind of view. Sorry, I'm just responding to a comment there. I'm going to turn it up louder, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty maxed out. Let me know. Someone else let me know. Maybe that person's just kind of just feeling that way. Sometimes we'd like to vent, and if we look for an opportunity to complain, we will complain, even though there's nothing to complain about. I'm pretty sure that's too hot. Sorry. If anyone working on a forklift, let me know. Icke unwraps these things because it's a spiritual kind of alchemy that allows you to align. You end up feeling better when you respond to someone giving you information. I'm no different than this. You feel more aligned with that because you stop losing calories. Worry inside your energy body is losing calories. The act of worrying is you losing calories. The act of dread, the act of you hating yourself, the act of you feeling fat, the act of you feeling bald, the act of these are just completely at random. The act of you feeling not as successful, the act of you feeling financially unstable, the act of you feeling like you have bad luck involving your investments. All of these things are just random things. All of these things are the reflection of your energy state as it's running right now. And we tend to either dismiss these or address them too completely. In other words, we tend to ignore our feelings or pretend like they are literally the answer to everything. And this fluctuation between apathy and embracement is difficult for us to find that even keel. I'm not even saying that we're supposed to find that even keel. I'm just telling you that your tranquility, your tranquilness, is in fact the art of feeling stable energetically. That's all it really means. That the worry is either gone or, in most cases, it is countered by a system of abandonment that is creating an equilibrium that allows you to stay copacetic, right? That you stay even keeled. So the information that you find comfort from, the music you find comfort from, the activities that you find comfort from, these are either going to alleviate worry or they're going to provide you with a framework to counter worry with something else. 2 totally different tasks, right? The removal of worry requires more silence. It's not as salacious. I'm going to use that word. It's not as salacious to you because you're getting quieter again. It's hard to sell quiet in a mall. How many of you have been in a mall and seen that there is suddenly a meditation store there? And inside that meditation store, there's tranquility and there's koi. That kind of scene is impossible because of the vibrations that it's competing with. You're going to find those type of settings in a rural retreat in Georgia mountains, right? Or outside of the city limits of something. You can attempt to find situations like these, right? So when you look at even what the free market is of emotional psychology, most of it's going to be built on noise. Most of it's going to be built on not on removing worry, but on providing a counterweight to worry. Because that's the only thing that would survive in the mall. It's just the only thing. It's not that there isn't a better solution out there. It's that the solution itself that you're seeking is competing in the flea market where there's a lot of noise, which means that the only things that are going to sell in the flea market are going to be shiny things, things that make noise, or things that look really, 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 really odd. And that those three things become the balance for what's actually spread, right? Now, when you are compensating with a counterweight of something that you fear, something that you worry, many times that counterweight will cause an exorcism in you because you have to abandon. You have to abandon the worry through a dishonest transaction with part of your psyche. The real fear, the real threat of your individual life is counterweighted by the story of three young, ripe teenagers with bouncy bodies outrunning a serial killer in a mask who walks really slow, is a counterweight to the worries that you have in the world. Your worrying about what's happening right now is completely obliterated by this teeny bopper slasher flick. That teeny bopper slasher flick, though, is a transaction. In order for you to feel less worry, you do have to lose the worry, which is why the movie is effective, which is why the spell of that script is effective to you. But how is it effective? It's effective through abandonment. It's effective in that you are allowed to abandon the real life worry by supplanting it with this fake worry instead. You know that the teeny boppers are going to be fine. You know that even though they're going to be killed on camera, everybody's going to be okay and this whole thing's going to get resolved. Something's going to happen that's going to be fine. That is you wrapping up the worry, the real life worry that you have, in the fake cellophane of the drama that you're watching. And it's a kind of baptism. It's a kind of sacrament that you absolve yourself of your worry the same way that you would absolve yourself of sin by making penance to it. But in this case, you're abandoning it in the fantasy of something else. The cellophane that's wrapped around the true worry that you have about maybe your job or your successfulness or your interpersonal relationships is being wrapped in the cellophane of the teeny bopper who keeps slipping on roots and who keeps just outrunning the killer in the mask. And by wrapping it in that cellophane, you're allowed to push it out of the canoe and watch it sink to the bottom. Now that process, I'm not here to say that's wrong. I'm not. We could certainly argue it, right? We could certainly talk about how unhealthy it is, but I'm already labeled as someone that's against venting and against victimhood, and I'm not that way. I just think that if we see it, we start to make our transactions better. So this is not an assault on that technique. This is an analytical Quincy playing forensics over that technique and actually look at what happens, because it's related to reptilians. That when you wrap the cellophane around the actual worry, the authentic worry that's there, you are exorcising. It's an exorcism. Someone write exorcism in chat so people can see it. It's not exercising. It's exorcising a part of your plasma, You're wrapping a part of your legitimate, authentic plasma inside cellophane and you're throwing it over the boat. That process is what leads to the creation of reptilians. I'm not kidding. And this is such a profound, realistic effect that the only way you're going to understand the truth of this all is by following that abandoned energy as it flows through the algorithm. Thank you. I'm glad you guys get it. Exorcising. That when you exorcise a demon, what are you doing? You are going up to someone's plasma who believes in you, and you are saying, there is a demon inside of you, and that person's plasma, that person says, yes, there's a demon inside of me. And you say to that, I will exorcise that out of you, and you say yes. And so you wrap the cellophane of the spell of exorcism around this part that you have demonized, this part that you have separated from, this mesh that's been placed into your body, and that you wrap it in the belief of this cellophane and you exorcise it from your system. You move it out. It's surgery. It's psychic archetypal surgery. And because we do not tangibly touch it, we're all over the place and so confused about how it works. We are so confused about how it works, and we end up demonizing anyone that even tries to talk about it. It's just a legitimate truth. Now, this entire system started in the Trinity. The Trinity of id, superego, and ego. And this Trinity is the very first psychic split that you had. The very, very first one. When you were young, you began to... Wait a minute, what just happened? When you were... Sorry. When you were young, I'm trying to hide the chatter here. I want to pay attention to the chat, but when the chat goes weird like that, I just have to shut it off because it's hard to focus. The id, the ego, and the superego were the very first exorcism that you did as an individual. It's true. Remember the me and the I? The raccoon is in me mode. And when the raccoon steps out and realizes he's licking a dirty used diaper, he enters into I mode. He's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. But when he's in the diaper, he's like, me likey corn. And when he steps into the I, he's like, I cannot believe I did that. I cannot believe that is happening. It's a different assemblage point. One assemblage point is deep inside the skull, right behind the I, me. You're inside Plato's cave. You were living inside your senses. The second is to step back to the amygdala and see it from there and say, I. And this same process is how we exorcise demons, because at the very birth of our psyche, we did it to ourselves. And we separated the three parts of our brain. And you could look at these as the id as being the gas, the urges that you have, the brake as being the superego, the consequences for those urges, and the ego itself being what it thinks is the wheel that's actually steering the boat. You could think about it this way, and I want you to understand that this is how most people that interpret Freud think about it. Right? This is what most of them consider to be that concept. And one of the reasons why we have problems with Freud is because he wasn't quite there. He didn't quite get it. And we're going to finish that gap today. But before then, we have to realize that we're standing on the shoulders of giants. And we are. Even if those giants are retarded, we're still standing on their shoulders. And that's important. The fact that you can see that giant as retarded, the fact that you can see Freud retarded is proof that you've grown from his perspective. The three psyches that split when you were developing your consciousness were the reptilian, the limbic, and the neocortex. This is, guess what? The reptilian is your urges, your id. Okay? The limbic system is your superego, your break. And your ego is your neocortex. So from the very young age, and keep in mind, this is your reptile brain, your mammal brain, and your human brain. White here is reptile, yellow is limbic, yellow is mammalian, and red is man. So from a very young age, we have understood the three different parts of our brain. We've understood how the brain itself processes and separates these three identities. But what we don't know is that all the memories and all the functioning and all the processing and all the understanding of something actually happens through our organs, not through our brain. We thought it was the brain because the neocortex made us the most comfortable. And that's the retarded giant that we're at. That's where modern psychology is at. The truth of the matter is, and we've gotten there. This isn't a James True discovery. But the truth is you have three brains. You've got the head, the gut, and the heart. And so all three of these systems have already been present in your life. The heart, let's call your urges, your desires for what you like. The gut is going to be this part. Wait, let me go back. Your superego, your break. When you digest something, it's too late. Once you've digested something through your system, it's the rudder, it's the braking in the back is what I mean. What you want has not been digested yet. How it digests is what you've already had. This is the front of your bow of your boat and the back of your boat, right? In the future is what you want, and in the past is how that digested, how what you wanted digested. In the middle is your captain. And these three different parts show you the shape of your vessel. Look at the red reptilian brain is a joystick. It looks like a joystick because it is a joystick. And wrapped around it in the yellow is the baton. And wrapped around the baton is the Q-tip. And these are the three different concepts, the three different notions or assemblages that you have with your brain, that you have with that system. Now, as you abandon different portions of your brain, as you accept different realities, as you make them true without them actually being true, you end up separating these parts. And what Freud was calling the Oedipus complex was truly just the psyche forming the layers of the emotional body. And this forming the layers of the emotional body is the next step beyond the three brains. Beyond understanding the triune aspects of your brain, the Trinity itself, is finding your fields, the emotional body itself. And what Freud felt was traumatic is what a flower feels when it unfolds. And Freud felt trauma in the old folding of the trauma of that. And he ended up with this really weird idea about, well, it's because you want to have sex with your mother, or because you want to have sex with your dad. And that is the reflective nature of the psyche that's abandoned itself, broadcasting itself. Freud felt less bad about his fetish by claiming that everyone had the same fetish. This is how we process all of our psychic phenomenon. We utilize news like we utilize tarot. And we turn the cards over like we see a new news story because it's divining for us. It's allowing for us what we think is an external stimuli to act as a surgical glove and change and manipulate who we are. And this leads to abandonment. We lose psychic energy this way, which is healthy. You gain more every time your heart pumps, psychic energy is made. It is imbued. And every time your skin cells die, psychic energy has given up. Psychic energy is over. So the venting process is natural, will never not occur. The idea that you have a quality is simply a fetish for pretending that you will not poop anymore. It's a cleansing fetish that we have. It's cleansing. Now, when we abandon our worry, we are handing over a psychic, sovereign control token that can be bought in the open market. And if you own this token, you own part of this project. And that project could be James True. That project could be movie theater goer number 17, who's watching the canoe psychopath chasing down teeny boppers. It could be Freud not feeling comfortable with how his energy body is unfolding. It could be all of these things. The energy body has 7 parts. I don't want anyone to take me to court on these things. When you see me show you a chart like this, I am not at all implying, look, this is your reality, and if you don't see it this way, or if you don't see the fields this way, that's I think that's part of that objective fetish we have, the fetish we have for objectivity and morality and Zionism and all the other stuff. The fetish we have that there's a right way and a wrong way. I just want you guys to remember that. However, this is really effective for me. It helps me to animalize what's happening. But that what Freud was calling the Oedipus complex really was the flower unfolding, and there are 7 petals. And that your deeper essence is your elemental body. And this elemental body goes on living long after you've died. When your skin cells, as we said, when your skin cells die. When you die, when you die, your skin cells continue to live. It takes days for your hair to realize what's happened to you. There's an elemental body that's showing its shadow deep in the past. What I mean is it's there beyond you. Even after you've gone, your elemental body lives on. And then there's your sexual body. You feel this when you feel naked. That the naked shame that you have is actually a good field. It's actually a pretty damn good, healthy field that your body has. You feel ashamed at being naked because you have worth. Because the secrecy of your private parts is a sense of worth. Why? Because you bestow them like potlatch only on the full moon, only on a certain ceremony, only when you're sharing the genitals of someone else. It's how you bequeath specialness to someone. And so having that field is a necessary, vital part of that flower. You have to have that field in order for this to work. Your emotional body is the same way. Outside of your sexuality, you might feel uncomfortable in a room, even though you're fully clothed. Your genitals are covered, but emotionally you still feel uncomfortable. This is a petal, a finger that's touching space and time. You're using your emotions to navigate an invisible world that you think you can see. You think you can see it because you're rendering the world, and you're under the impression that what you render must be there. But the truth of the matter is what you render is what you're comfortable of rendering. Plato's cave is painted for you because it needs to keep you in the seat. You will leave the theater if suddenly the teeny bopper movie turned into a cancer survival story. You would get up within 5 minutes and say, there's no way I'm going to be able to watch this movie. And the same thing happens inside your eyeballs. Googly drool balls. Googly Pavlovian drool balls are what your eyes are. And they're responding to what they think you're going to be able to see to remain aware and in the environment. And if they need to remove a few pieces, or if they need to wrap up other pieces in cellophane, no problem, because they need you to stay in your seat. You already check out every day when you go to sleep. You already can't handle reality 24 hours a day. There's a certain part of you that is not in charge. And your unwillingness to accept the responsibility of that leads to exorcism, leads to abandonment. And you abandon this part in these 7 different fields. Abandonment is not bad. It's not bad. You are venting energy when you are abandoning. And why would you vent energy? Because it's too hot. You do not like your pistons above 3,000 RPMs, and so what do? You drag the brakes. You do whatever it takes. You allow less air into the engine compartment. You squeeze your fuel injectors because you want to slow down. There's nothing wrong with that. It's how you learn to be responsible. But when you abandon that power unconsciously, guess what? Unconscious power is free will vector demonology. What does that mean? Excuse me, I'll stretch my eye. What does that mean? When you have when you charge red blood cells in your chamber, in your heart chamber, they're charged with the will, the clarity of your will that you have. In 1 second, you will really be confident. And all those red blood cells will be, yay, we're full of confidence. And then the next second, maybe you have some doubt. And all those red blood cells, you don't know that, but all those red blood cells are rushing into your system to secrete doubt. And the end result of how well you do on the golf swing, the end result of how well you do reaching in to kiss that girl, the end result of how well that painting or that song turns out is going to simply be the math associated with the vectored will of all those red blood cells. When you abandon red blood cells to a story that you know is not true, you are exercising primal virgin red blood cell will. You understand? You have not primed it, which means that all that will is up for grabs. Your blood vessels are running through your system, but they do not have a pilot of awareness. You have not claimed those red blood cells as your own because you wrapped them in cellophane, because you needed to dispel that energy. And my friends, the most precious energy in this world is virgin red blood cells. Full of hemoglobin, they're just ripe. The ripest boobies of hemoglobin. The fattest hips, the juiciest ass, right? This kind of energy to the vampire is just straight up kadonkadonk. And that competition brings out the deepest forms of hyena you've ever seen. And it becomes a professional game. It's brutal. The psychic energy is real. It's real. Why don't we buy underwear from Goodwill? Oh, because it's gross. Sure, yeah, I get it. It's gross. But why is it not even a concept? It's because that underwear has been fully imbued with the shame and the genitals of that person. It's simply not going to be able to be alchemized. That underwear can only be burned. It cannot be reclaimed because of how deep the pranic bond is into those fibers. Those fibers alone protected the most precious resource, that secondary field of feeling nude. Why do used shoes feel so creepy? Same reason. You ever gone into Goodwill and say, whoa, look at those cool old shoes, and you put them on and you're like, holy shit, this feels weird as shit. It feels so weird. And you can certainly claim that, it's because the shoes were misworn, it's because of this, it's because of that. But the truth is that all of your venting is coming out of the bottom of your feet. And that those shoes have been imbued they've been saturated with the venting of someone else's energy. When you put on horse blinders, you're wrapping yourself in cellophane, you're accepting a truth, and you're just moving through. You're just moving through. And all that energy that you extract is going to who? Who gets all the horse's energy when it's wearing horse blinders? And it's a jockey. The jockey does. Sorry, I've got a graphic of a jockey. I thought it was next, but it's not. The jockey does. Jockey will win millions of dollars off the abandoned virgin will of that horse. And all it took was to direct that horse down a straight path between two poles, right? And so the exorcism of that horse's energy belongs to the jockey, which is why the jockey gets the trophy. The jockey gets the trophy. Yeah, they put something around the horse, but the jockey gets the trophy. Why? Because it was his energy. That horse abandoned it to him. It's how it works. And we can't see any of this, but it's how it works. The triune brain, the three ids, the lizard brain, the mammal brain, the human brain. When you abandon any energy from these fields, that energy goes somewhere until it is claimed. And do you want to know where all your reptilian energy goes that you abandon? To the reptilian overlords. It goes to the reptilian overlords. And it might sound weird to be like, what? It goes to the reptilian overlords. We live in a thermodynamic closed system. That psychic energy goes somewhere. You'd be full of shit to think it doesn't. It's not real. You'd be missing the boat. You'd be abandoning yourself and exercising some of the most precious vital energy you have if you did not admit that this energy had to go somewhere. So where would all the excess reptilian abandonment go? It would go to a place where it could gather amongst itself. And that place where it would go would be purely based on where humans put it with their will. That you and I would create will to have a space somewhere where reptilian abandoned energy goes. You have the same thing in your house. Not once did you ever say, yes, we're looking for a house that's going to have a drawer so we can store all these freaking plastic bags. That's what we're looking for in a house. And not once when you are going through your house and when you're planning it, do you think about, I wonder where we're going to put all those plastic bags. That the collection, the space for that, ends up being a decision that's never made directly, but is simply made by all the other decisions around it. That the place where you decide to put the spatulas, the place where you decide to put the excess nails and screws, the place where you put those bolts that you know are important, the place that you put that strange part of the dishwasher that you're afraid to throw away. That all those places were never picked or chosen to be in the third drawer, but found their way to the third drawer simply because they were placed there by the importance of everything else that had will. And the reptilian energy in this world is the same. It goes somewhere and it's placed in a certain place. That place has to be in a place where no one can touch it and where we will be able to access it again, where we will be able to sweep any other kind of reptilian abandonment to the same spot. And that place cannot be tangible because we're dealing with demon energy. You cannot go to that place because we do not want to go there. We do not want to face that. It's abandoned energy. So it needs to be a place that we can never go. And the answer where it goes is the Zeta Reticuli Nebula. That it rises above the Kármán line and sits in a spot in our vaulted psychic space, much like a hard drive, much like a drawer, and it's kept there. And because it's kept there the entire time, people that want to feed on energy are constantly going, man, there's some grapes up there. There's some reptilian energetic grapes up there. And if I can be a good fox, I will figure out how to squeeze that energy. And why would they not? That is the most delicious red-blooded virgin energy ever to be found. And it's just there for the taking. It's just waiting for the taking. It's waiting for someone to pop it like a piñata and just make it rain all that candy. Just make it rain down. So who ends up getting that energy? Who ends up getting that energy? Now, in case I don't come back to this, but I want you to think about how the pawns, the lizard brain is the reptilians. The mammalian brain is the Pleiadians, right? It's that dolphin alien face that you see. And those are the good aliens. The lizards are the bad aliens. And then you have the greys, these human-brained gray creatures. It's the human brain, but it's enlarged. It's the outer lobe enlarged. And that human brain, the closest we can see the abandoned energy of the reptilian, the mammalian, and the human brain is in our psychic mythology. And mythology is a real word. Mythology of these alien species. That these effects are shown to us. And that the reason why the reptilian brain is scary is directly related to how far away the Zeta Reticuli is. That because it's 12, 13 trillion light years away, we are comfortable enough with it being there. We can say, reptile energy, you go sit way over there. You can stay, but you're going to have to sit way, 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 way over there in the back so all of us can see if you make a move. And so it does. So it allows us in our mythology to render the truth of the abandoned energy, but from a safe distance where it feels okay. The Greys live on the planet. The Greys with the big head aliens, they live on the planet. They're sticking stuff up butts. They're interacting with governments. They are drone-like agents. Because they're so close, the psyche had to remove their teeth. And so they did. They don't have teeth. They don't have thumbs. Sometimes they do. They don't have genitals. They don't wear clothes because they have nothing to hide. They're shiny. They have no body hair, so they're very clean. They have kitten eyes, the biggest eyes you could ever imagine. The biggest ones they could ever seen. They don't talk like an animal, like a pet. So we bring these truths closer. What's closer to you is that human outer brain. And so the context, the demonology that you have with the abandonment of that is going to be something that is closer to you. It's not going to be 13.6 trillion light years away. It's not going to be deep, 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 deep inside your triune brain. It's going to be right there at the outer surface. These are psychic shadows. And it's important. It's important. And I should talk about it more. The shadow's fuel is abandonment. And every piece of abandonment comes from exorcised trust. Exorcised trust. The exorcism of trust is fuel for all demons. And our demons have grown. Our demons are more mature. Our demons are the secret space program, which is an exorcism of trust of our government, right? Our trust, we abandoned our trust to the government. We gave it raw red blood virgin red blood cells wrapped in the cellophane that we could trust our government. And so that ends up looking like a secret space program or Pizzagate. Or the concept of a deep state, the idea that the government is good except for this one bad element called the deep state. All of these things are our abandonment of trust. Think about it. We trust the military and they have a secret space program. We trust that our kids are okay and they're not. We trust that our government's good and it's not. And we have these fantasies which are fed to us by the people that want those grapes, such as WikiLeaks, Drake, Snowden. All of these have the exact same purpose. We're calling forth more of the abandonment of that trust into that conglomerate, into that system that only works if everyone's being paid and is the worst bureaucracy you could imagine. And then you go fanatic on that. You become so, you have abandoned so much trust that you have no choice but to believe it even more. So there's a secret space war going on. And that the secret space war, the only thing keeping you and me alive is the magnanimous, abandoned, vectored demons from our own will. That our mammalian brain is saving us from the evils of our reptilian brain, is showing you the architecture of 3 different levels of a flower or of a nautilus. That inside the nautilus is the first pillar, which is that reptile. That reptile evolves itself away from itself and becomes the mammalian, which evolves away from itself to become the human brain. So we have these concepts like prison planet, free energy, a secret space war. And these are all Jungian models of our collective fetishes. Fetish for slavery. We have a deep fetish for slavery. We do. As a populace, we do. You just see it in culture all the time. And why would you not? Why would you not? As a slave, you no longer need your mammalian brain. As a slave, you no longer need your neocortex. As a slave, those things get in the way. So our deepest desire for slavery is truly our deepest desire to the conservation of energy. And all of us want to survive, which means all of us will play the conservation of energy 24 hours a day. And some of us have the privilege of being able to do that longer, right? We're white belts, so we can push the ignorance longer. We're able to fool ourselves longer. The white belt is the one that's able to separate from the true reality of his world that might be painful with the cellophane story of Hollywood. That's a white belt move, right? And as you get better in this world, sadly, better means you lose these superpowers. That you're not able to exercise your demons in the same way. You're not able to castigate and say, that person is the source of all the evil, and that all of us would be great if that person would stop talking. That's the exorcism of raw red blood cells wrapped in cellophane. The shadow's main source of fuel is abandoned trust. Freud's main source of fuel is the abandoned trust from his parents. And this was as far as he could go with the fields. This is as far as he could go. Now, when we look at this psychic landscape, if we really want to understand what it is, well, let's understand it. This world is a canvas. The psychic world is a canvas. And strapped to that psychic world is the real world. When I say strapped, what I mean is that probably the way this world works, and I say probably because if you follow the eye raw, it's just hard to imagine it doesn't work this way, is that part of this would have to work in a way where it starts with a psychic world. This is the idea of mentalism, and that through thought vibrations, through unanimous thought vibrations, we cohese society into something solid. That by you and me and everyone else around us agreeing that something is solid, it becomes solid. Now, if you look at reality in that canvas painting way, you start to understand how important Kronos was, or the patriarchs were. That these people that came before us were here to paint the initial scaffolding of the map of this world, right? I want it to look sort of like a dome, maybe a bundt cake turned upside down. We need like a Mount Meru in the center for the magnetism. We're going to need continents. We're going to need water. That those decisions were made through the power of witness. That it was witness that burned that canvas first. You and I are late painters. Because of that, you and I, if we ever get the opportunity to paint on canvas that hasn't been there before, it becomes more of a rarity, and we forget that that's how powerful it is. When we have children, we do that. You are painting your genetics in a place that's never been painted before, which is why the child is different, and why that child reflects who you are so much. Because that canvas, that virgin canvas, was allowed to be touched by your virgin blood cells. There are places in the sky, there are places in the bottom of the ocean that have not been witnessed yet, which is very important. Which is why some of your deepest thinkers, some of your most popular, when it comes to witness-centric people, are people that have claimed a part of the sky, or a part of the Sheol, or a part of the mind, or a part of the jungle, and said, I found something new. And that thing did not succeed because it was real. It succeeded because it was popular and it sold. That in the mall, you were able to find it among the other stores, and it was competing over the same volume, the same flashy lights, the same shiny hard floors. It was competing in that environment for your belief. And others saw it and gave forth red blood cell, virgin blood cells, to the idea that that is an obelisk and that is a mountain. And he who climbs the mountain is higher than everyone else, and he who is higher is above. All these concepts were built on the prefabricated builders that came into our society and psychically sewed these stones into place. Solomon's ring, Solomon wearing the ring could command all demons because Solomon had the first choice at witness. He was able to define these original archetypes, the original chambers that would hold our zeta reticuli, that would hold our eye in the pyramid, that would hold all the archetypes that run through our system. And this could only exist inside a canvas that can never be touched. And so we introduced the Kármán line. That the definition of space is anything above the Kármán line. It's roughly 100 kilometers. Roughly 50,000 feet. 50, 60,000 feet. Actually, maybe that footage is wrong. But so above the Kármán line, you and I will never go. We never will. We can talk about it. We can have fantasies about it. We can create Friday the 13th movies about going above the Kármán line, right? We can create Hollywood stories about it. But you and I, as civilians, we're never allowed to rise above that line. It's considered top secret. The word top secret is altitude secrecy. Now, above this altitude secrecy, you're going to have the finest, cleanest canvas you can imagine. And you're going to have a place where only certain authorities get to paint. Only government, only the church, only the most powerful church in the world gets to paint above the Kármán line. Guys, why do you think God always comes from heaven? The reason why God always comes from heaven is because the people who paint above the Kármán line are painting in the only spot they could paint. And they already painted hell. They already painted the core. And so they paint the heaven too. So what does science do? Science comes in and says there's enough space here. Because not enough witness can come up here and actually look, we are going to paint this more. And what gives us that right? Because we shot off a firework that goes high and people think, people believe whatever we tell them this rocket does once it crosses the Kármán line. Once it crosses the Kármán line, NASA owns all of that abandoned red blood cell virgin energy. It owns it all because it has no choice. If you were going to watch and witness this, you are going to have to witness what they tell you is happening, which means anything above 50,000 feet is free blood cells. It's all free. It's all up for grabs. This is a canvas, and this canvas is reachable by your fingers. When you point, you're really painting in witness. You're dipping your paint in the paint of witness when you point at something, because you're telling someone, I want witness right there, like a little blob, bloop, a little dot, right on the camera lens. That's what it is. So, all this energy is grabbed by NASA. All this energy is grabbed by anyone that commands authority or belief above the Kármán line. That's where they get their authority. That's what gives it to them, is that they can do that. Believe it or not, the space program is a demon domestication program. That as a division of Disney, NASA maintains the collective shadow work of outer space. Without it, humanity's demons grow feral. What do I mean by that? Think about a feral cat. Think about walking outside your house at night and you hear 17 cats in heat and they're wandering through the neighborhood. Now think about that with what people would randomly in the wild consider is above the Kármán line in space. If NASA was not carving the most sterile, clean, predictable demons ever in outer space, what would your neighbors be painting instead? What would they be painting instead? This is the same myth that came with atheism. People believe that atheism was real. That, yeah, you can just like not believe anything. And no, the moment you try and not believe anything, you end up believing everything. And the same thing holds true with our skies. If NASA was not painting something sterile up there, David Icke's demons would be 1,000,000 times stronger. The most popular among us, the most salty, the most salacious, would end up ruling these skies. And this has true, real-life consequences. We murder our children over what we believe is above the Kármán line. And so NASA acts as a kind of clergy for the dome. I'm not saying they're good or bad. I'm just telling you, keep in mind, clergy can be just as bad as they can be good. So don't be writing, James just loves NASA. I don't fucking love NASA. I'm just telling you what happens. That's it. That's it. And I'm also telling you that they're probably not doing it because they're like, hey, look how evil we are. No, they're probably fucking get off over how good they are. Most of the evil done in the world is done by people who are pretty sure they're good. And when you compassionate why someone's doing this and why they think you're good, you start to see things in the world you couldn't see before. Why? Because you're not too busy demonizing. You're not too busy saying, James is the source of all demon activity, or whatever the fuck it is today that's going to get you off to abandon more power to feed NASA. You're feeding NASA when you do that. You're calling them forth and you're saying, we need some cops in our dreams. That's what NASA is. Why? Because we can't handle that. Because that fucking Billy asshole, we can never handle shit. We have to do all this stuff for Billy. What is NASA doing but telling you that demons are asteroids? And what is an asteroid? It's the most sterile demon we've ever conjured. We can look at this asteroid. We can stare at it. We can be afraid of it. We can be scared of it. But we can also study it. We can even land on them. We can exorcise those asteroids with an explosion that saves the entire planet. We can mine them for gold and diamonds, right? We can alchemize our demons by using religion. We can alchemize our asteroids by using science. We can mine gold from our asteroids using science. We can mine our psychology by cleansing ourselves of demons by using religion. This is the same thing. It's the exact same process. You have to remember that if someone believes something exists, it exists. And you're not living in a world where that's allowed. But it's true. I've written a book called Quantum Rapture, which talks about the repetitive, cyclical nature of civilization exploding into amnesia and omniscience over and over again. Anyone who's read that book knows the characters. You and I could have a conversation about a character, and we will know that that character will react in a certain way, in a very predictable fashion. Why? Because that character is real. That character is a running algorithm. It's as real as any other plant that you place into a pot and you say, this is now Fred. You're taking real live growing energy and you're placing it in a fertile environment and you're giving it your witness and you're naming it. And because you named it, because you gave it your witness, that plant is probably going to grow. Some of you might kill that plant. Why? Because you're exercising the venting idea that anything I touch is going to die. So it does. It does because you need that to vent. The same way you would say, oh, I'm going to nurse this plant back to life, and look at that, it did. It did. It's called harshing the vibe, I need a beer. I think that's probably why you're muted. I think it was just like harshing the vibe, that's all. And there's just a certain vibe, that's all. And I kind of like what the mods do, because they're exercising that too. There's a mall, it's full of people that are talking all the time. They will not shut the fuck up. And you're trying to sell a meditation. You're trying to sell something that requires quiet. And so there's only a few tiny spaces like that, and people are just going to claim it. So I didn't actually watch what happened, but just a quick note to let you know that it's really not personal. It's really more about the vibe. That's it. It's just more about the vibe. But I think you probably wanted that. This is what goes deeper is you probably wanted to be banned, so you start to act in a flamboyant way because secretly you kind of want to get smacked in the face with a board. One of the most awake times we feel, one of the most important times we feel is when someone hits us in the face with a board. It shows the truest, kindest witness because you're not living in unconditional love. Unconditional love is a shitty place to live in. Conditional love is where it's at. Because people are legitimately telling you, I value your witness. And they're telling you what about your witness is constructive and what about your witness isn't, right? Even if it's wrong and you've been wronged, it's a great vitriolic event for you too. So it's like across the board, the entire system has these exercises built in, which make it constructive. Especially the hard parts. Especially the hard parts. This stuff's real because people believe it. The only definition of reality is what someone believes. So where does this energy go? What is a reptilian? Is Justin Trudeau a reptilian? Is he a shapeshifter? Is he secretly an alien that's wearing a human skin? Well, think about it. Where is your reptilian brain? It's deep underneath your skin. Right? So when people call world leaders reptilian, they're very accurate. They're right. And when they're looking at Trudeau and they're seeing this morphic slip, you're looking into the instincts of that person. There's been some glitches when we were moving the office, and like sometimes my eye would freeze because of the compression. Because when you blink, anyway. The point is that it was feeding that people had a desire to feel that I was a reptilian. It was feeding them. They were like, yes, there it is. It's proof. It's all the proof I need. It's belief after the fact, not before the fact. You're trolling for those feelings until you get them. When you place your fish, when you place your hook into the water, that hook's in the water for a long time before the fish bites. Think about that. That the hooks you have in the water right now could have been there for years and you've been waiting for them to bite the whole time. So when it finally bites, boom. You won. And then you're like, I didn't want this. And that's part of the difference between learning between your brains. Guys, keep in mind that your reptile brain is purely built on the urges that would come in the future, and your mammalian brain is purely built on the digestion of those urges in the past, which means those two things are not supposed to agree. Those two things are supposed to be used in the future and in the past, like a rudder that you can have in both places. You are in the center, but you're touching the rudder. You can feel it. It's in the past, and you're feeling how both those things, how does it digest and how do I want it? That's the front and the back of your ship. And the reptilian is simply only in one spot. Only in one. I believe James was a reptilian, and after 270 episodes, I caught him. Exactly. So what's causing the reptilian? Remember I told you that it's the abandoned mammalian brain? Well, it looks like this. That sheer complete ignorance and ignoring what's happening causes that abandonment to happen all the time. It just happens repeatedly. And how do you win a race? Through that. Almond eye, 13 million francs. Winks, 14.5. Now, this is the same demonology. Guys, when you really look at the life of Trudeau, that is distracting. I thought James had the mods under control. No, I need a beer. You need the mods to be under control because you need a life that has control. I don't want the mods to be under control. I want the mods to be sovereign. Do you understand? My goal is to have them be sovereign. Thank you, Raina. I think I've got great mods too. I mean, we're just losing so much time on that right now. I think they did good. I'm kind of backing them there. It's actually been distracting me when I see what you're typing because it's usually not related. I'm kind of with them on that one. But that's what makes the mods good. They're the ones who are watching the chat, so I could just focus on the content and just go. So it's kind of silly to even think that I would. Do you really want me to spend the show I Need a Beer, like watching everyone else mod you to make sure that that's right? Because how would I even unleash that kind of control over a sovereign human that's like volunteering to be a mod in a chat? Well, why would I do that? Why would I like stalk my day and go, well, I really want to make sure that I'm policing my mods? It's part of that abandonment, and that's going to go somewhere. And where's it go? It's going to go right here, right here. From the very youngest age, this man has been abandoning his instincts and his desires because of the cameras. The witness has been on him from a child. And so from the very minute, he's abandoned all of his reptilian and even mammalian urges and is simply obeying. He's simply obeying. And that obeying is going to manifest itself. It's going to manifest itself in a Lance Armstrong doping kind of way. What I mean is that you are going to find Trudeau's hunger worse than anyone else's because he spent the entire life inside that witness spotlight, denying himself, abandoning himself of that. So he becomes the reptilian because he has no choice. He's been gilded on a pedestal. He's a prisoner of the egregore. The egregore, the collective psychic conglomerate that ends up getting pushed into the drawer with the plastic bags. That's assignable. And someone can come in and say, I'm going to use all these plastic bags and no one else is going to mind because you were the first person that opened the drawer and claimed them. And you said, this is what it means. This is what it means. And so this energy ends up going up for grabs, but it's only going to go to grabs. It's not going to go to the person who deserves it. It's not going to go to someone who's magnanimous. It's not going to go to someone who's moral. It's going to go to someone who's willing to dope more than anyone else is to get it. And who would want it more than someone who's spent their entire life on a pedestal? Who? No one. No one would. And we elect these people. We as a collective, put Justin Trudeau on a pedestal from the day he was born. He's not upset about the mandates. He's upset that people didn't like him. Look at what he gave. He gave his entire life so people would like him, and now they don't. That's the reality of the houseplant. That houseplant was planted, and this is what's happening. This is the result. This is what a reptilian looks like. This is what it looks like. This is what a reptilian looks like. Someone who will swallow the egregore and it doesn't matter what happens. Reptile will eat its own young. When that lizard hatches and it walks in front of its mother will just eat it. It will eat that energy because it has no mammalian brain to help. There's no mammalian brain to tell Justin Trudeau, dude, you're just carving yourself inside out, aren't you? There's nothing there to stop it. All there is encouragement to keep going because people keep giving him witness. What else are you going to do? There's nothing else to do but to keep eating the witness. You're a racehorse now. You're a painted horse. You've got your blinders on, and all you can do is move forward. You've been tuned this way since you were a child. This is a thoroughbred racehorse, and his blinders are his muzzle. And he's a thoroughbred. He wins. He wins, which is why he gets that energy. We all agree to give him that energy because he won, because he ran the fastest, he did the most. Right? He will do anything to have that witness because he's been trained from a very young age. This is the reptilian. Look at Neil Young, same thing. He wanted the witness so bad that he let Pfizer buy his song management company, right? Blackstone Group owns them too. I know Blackstone owns a lot of stuff, but actually BlackRock owns even more. But it didn't bother him that was happening because the witness was so crucial. This is going to be hard for you to believe, but Neil Young used to be a really cool guy. I'm not kidding. And when you're seeing that cool, what made him a cool guy, it was the egregore around him. It was the abandoned self-fame that people had that they gave him. It was like, man, I can't play guitar. Here, you can. You have this energy. It was just constant. And you end up being put on a pedestal where that's all you want. You're desperate for that. You're desperate for it. It's very difficult to be an addict of witness. It's very difficult. So what is the effect of this kind of magic? Please say whatever you want about Hillary Clinton, but you cannot deny that she pulls and drinks witness. Like pulls serious witness. And these are the dopers. These are the Lance Armstrongs. George Bush, look at how much witness he was pulling. I mean, it's like hardcore. All these events, everything is about witness. Look at all the power Hong Kong was giving to Trump. And when I say giving, I mean the whole thing was planned. It's a Breitbart operation, but the people were buying it. This guy wasn't paid. Look at his eyes. That is worship exercised into Donald Trump. And he wears his muzzle. And he puts his hat on. Because he just wants to look forward. This is some of the most beautiful abandoned witness you've ever seen. And it's what the system takes now because it's gotten so ridiculous, right? It's gotten so ridiculous on top of itself that the only way to fix it is to become more ridiculous. And so it is. It's just going to keep becoming more ridiculous. More and more and more. And so it looks like this now. Whoops. Shit. Oh, God. Now I'm going to get... Oh, God. Oh, shit. Sorry for yelling, but... Friday's episode, I lost all ability for that to be monetized because I played like 3 seconds of a song, and I'm pretty sure that probably just happened again. Sorry, I don't mean to be so focused on money lately, but man, that pisses me off. I was trying to show you the whole picture, but this happens, and this is good. This is good, and still so many people are like, this is the most horrible thing ever, James. Look at this. All these stupid fools is what they're saying. These people are fools. And why? Because that witness of what it felt like to be the only person that saw what was going on in the world is gone. Right? Being the only one in the truth movement who knew about the reptilians and about this and about that. That energy's gone now. You're now competing in the open market for the canvas of that, and you don't like it. And so you're going to shit on anyone that's trying to fix it. It's the magic that comes out of us is just palatable. It's as disgusting as it is nutritious sometimes. To watch it all, to be truly responsible for all that stuff. Oh, that's great news, guys. Thanks for letting me know. It's palatable. And it goes somewhere. And it doesn't go somewhere because there's a reptilian controller. It goes somewhere because we put it somewhere. We put it somewhere. The Pope isn't hiding. No one in the Rome is hiding the reptilian element. No, the very base root of Catholicism is on the abandonment of that reptile. This isn't hiding. There's nothing about this that is suppressed. This reptile cult is not suppressed. This reptile cult is being held because it's important. It's important. You demonize your reptile because it makes you feel better about having an intuition. The intuition makes you nervous, and so you demonize it. We look for opportunities like this. We look for opportunities like this to abandon our power. And when you see truthers that are like, this is so, you're just watching the abandonment of power. There's a lot of power collecting the victimhood of others, the hyenas of others. It's a lot of it. Most of the censorship that I've encountered has been through other truthers that have been like, this guy, I just don't get a good vibe off him, right? It doesn't matter what you're saying. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You're going to be looking at the venting of these fields is going to be more about what's going on. These fields. The top layer is your ancestor field. Your epigenetic pride. Even pride's a bad word now because that field's that was the easiest to take down. Kill pride. Kill your task field. Take everyone's job. Kill your casual field. Tell everybody to stay home. Kill your egoic field. You don't have your own immune system. You need our vaccine. Kill the emotional field. Just the raw suppression. It's a direct attack. It's a direct eugenical attack on you. And it worked because it penetrated each of those layers. And if you start thinking that your reptile is evil, if you start thinking that your mammal is evil, if you start thinking that the Trinity inside you is evil, that is that same force echoing inside you now too. That the propaganda of that attack is so strong that it's now inside you. And so now you're being attacked from the outside and the inside. But if you embrace that reptile, if you embrace that mammal, if you embrace that human, you see a three-pointed trinity lighting its way through the cosmos. And you find a whole other source of power there. And you start to notice the venting more. And what is the noticing of the venting would be the harnessing of the venting, because now those red blood cells belong to you again. And so you don't need as much fear. You don't need as much negativity. You don't need a scapegoat. You don't need a ritual. You don't need to blame a god. You don't need to blame a government. You don't need to have an illusion of a deep state. You don't need to think about a secret space war between the Reptilians and the Pleiadians. You don't end up like Jordan Sather suddenly telling everyone that there's a blue space chicken. Jordan Sather was at the height of his popularity. And he was brought on by the mass assumption that everyone makes that everything that you read is true by default. That's what brought Jordan Sather down. And it's what is waiting for the secret space program. It's the sudden realization that everything is not true by default. And that is a very expensive place to live. To change your posture to say everything is not true by default means you have to verify everything. And that is caloric as hell. That takes up a lot of calories. But if you don't do it, you end up like Jordan Sather, where next thing you know, you're pushing a blue space chicken. And overnight, you disappear. Because you were never, ever, ever grounded. You were never embracing your reptilian. You were abandoning it so much to where you turned into a blue fucking chicken. That you went chicken shit because you ran out of prana to abandon. You ran out of it. And I'm not here to tell you the intentions of NASA the same way I'm not here to tell you the intentions of David Icke. I'm here to tell you that both of these are creatures that are seeing untapped raw red blood cell energy, and they want to squeeze it between their teeth and drink it down. I want to do that too. But I want you to volunteer to give me your witness. I don't want your witness by wrapping part of it in cellophane and telling you the reason why you have to listen to me is because I'm the only person who knows that QAnon is going to tell you about the secret underground investigation that's happening next week, or that Epstein Island is burning, or that the only way we can save ourselves is to stop having sex with our wives and demon, whatever the story is. I want that witness too. Your witness is that important to me that I get up at 6 in the morning and start prepping a show. Your witness is that important to me to where I change my entire life to work for your witness. This is not a no one should seek witness. This is a you should find the value of your witness and decide who gets it. You should curate your witness more. And you already do, but you curate it more based on the comfort that you feel from the witness around you. We all do this. But when we can change that gear and shift into the fact that we are surrounded by people that are lying to themselves and to you all the time, and these are people that you love, you start to tap into a deeper, deeper root. You start to embrace these relationships from a very different level. It's a deeper world. And it's not going to be easy. You can't abandon all of these feelings and exist in this world that we're in. You can't hang with me and abandon all that shit, because you will end up buying into this notion that James True is some evil Luciferian, whatever the fuck it is they say. That becomes necessary when you start to notice how much you're going to have to invest to run with the big boys, to keep up with this kind of pace over reality. Is my reality better? Probably not, because it doesn't have as much pussy spots. It doesn't have all this pussy hole crap in it that's built into, well, it's because of them and they. And this guy's fucked because he's going to hell because I'm going to heaven because I have the righteous codpiece on. It's none of that shit. This stuff's harder. You're compassionating people that you hate. You're constantly looking at the thermodynamic equation of that, going, wherever I find hate, I'm looking for an opportunity to have more compassion. That is an exercise. It is not a float down a river. It's a different show. It could be why the numbers are where they are, because it's not the appetite. That could be why. It could be because I'm just not entertaining. It could be both, right? There's not one reality here, because you are abandoning your demons to reality and making that real, just like I am, just like all of us are. These are exercises. And most people can't even handle Carl Jung. Most people can't even talk about him. The next time someone tells you Jung is full of shit, realize you're staring at a man-bear pig. You're looking directly into the eyes of a man-bear pig who's not able to understand or differentiate subtle energy. And it's all there. It's dripping with it. It's dripping with reptilians that lick it every day. Right? You see it. There's a great interview with me and Jerry Marzinsky, Sonny Bunny, on my channel. I think there's two. And part of understanding the demonology of this is understanding where your psychic energy goes. If we want to have a conversation after this, where in addition to human psychic energy abandonment, there is a reptilian energy, we can have that talk. But we are not going to go there until we first do all the math to add up. Look at the vats and vats and vats of abandoned energy that we give the reptilian, because that seems so much more abundant than any other secret reptilian force that could exist. This notion that the queen is a reptilian is actually the notion that a bunch of cucks worship someone because they think she's royal. But those cucks will never want to admit that, yeah, I've been fucking worshiping a queen, because they don't want to buy into that shit. So they don't. So the only thing else they can come up with is she's a reptilian overlord. That makes cucks feel better. Having a scapegoat makes you feel better about abandoning that power. You kill the goat because it wipes you clean of the absolution that you had of cucking on your own energy, of giving it away to some stupid story, or of abandoning the concept of a bunch of people that are finally have had enough, right? To even point at these truckers and say this is stupid is someone trying to abandon all of that psychic force and give it to the reptiles. Why? Because they feel better if there's reptiles everywhere. It makes their harvest of energy that much cheaper. And you're going to find that most of the truth market is that. Most of what you're being sold right now is hyenas selling chicken on a stick to other hyenas. Blue space chickens deep fried. That's what ends up happening in this system. And it teaches you more. So I don't even think it's broken. I shouldn't try and live off witness, right? I shouldn't. I should learn to value my own witness more, all this stuff. So this isn't even a complaint. This is an anatomy lesson. It's an anatomy on where this energy goes. If anything, I hope you leave feeling more empowered, going, holy shit, I've got a lot of power in my reptile that I'm cranking out, that I'm losing. And when you walk into the church, just like, guys, when you drive down the road and you see Je suis, Jesus saves, and you think, I am saved. Well, that's beautiful. Je suis saves, I save. So too can you look at this, sorry to get my mouse over here. So too can you look at this building and start to pull power from it. You pull power from the audience, the Pope's audience chamber, because you realize that millions and millions and millions of people that call themselves good would worship underneath a snake head and have no idea that they do it. None at all. They would have no idea. And they still won't have an idea. That should make you feel better, because you can see something. And you don't know how deep you can see until you have something like this that shows you, that says, hey man, yeah, yeah, what you just see, that's what's happening. That is there to make you feel better, not worse. That should make you feel taller, not worse, because you can now see so clearly. These people are showing you your own sight. The responses to these things are showing you how far you can fathom. Deep. You got some deep tentacles, baby. You do. It's impressive. It is. All right, so Wednesdays, I promise an AMA. I don't even know if this is going to work today. It could be that I just need to let you absorb, but I'm going to do a quick run through the chat. If you have any questions you want to ask me, feel free to ask me that. I will mention that Redneck Bear has said that that anyone who participates in counseling is a bad name, and so I'm just using that as a reminder to say, hey guys, I offer counseling, and if you have had enough of people like Redneck Bear, and you want to find your energy more, and you think that maybe having a one-on-one with me to do that, then you can. You can find that on jtrue.com, book consults there. If you don't want to do the one-on-one, you can participate in Dojo. It's a great way to look at your own psychic energy and how it appeals to witness. So there's two different options there. Or if you want to pretend that I'm the source of all your problems, you could be Redneck Bear and leave comment about that. You have all three of those choices. There's so many different choices that you have, and that's what makes this so beautiful. I met my reptile trickster archetype in a dream. It was wild. Yeah, that reptile, anytime that you see that reptile in your dreams, I think that you could easily relate that to your communication with that reptile energy. That reptile energy that you have doesn't speak to you in words. It's going to speak to you in simple urges. Not complex urges, simple urges. And you will see that first speak. If you know that cookies make your stomach hurt, but you still eat a cookie, then you end up with basically you're being run by the reptile there. Are you gay? I need a beer. Are you gay like the mods? I don't know if the mods are gay. If you're asking about my personal sexuality, man, I think women are just, oh God, they're so awesome. Oh man, I really like women a lot. I think they're great. I think men are great too. But sometimes I just want to like swap genital stuff with women. I think about that sometimes. So, I'm not sure why you'd ask that. I need a beer. You're not contributing anything to the conversation. So that was a really stupid question. So I'm going to just block you. Next question. Let's see. I thought the saying was not to troll per these bear. Yeah. The bear thing is a phenomenon that's going to keep coming because the bears are kind of like torn between two worlds. They're watching, if what I'm hearing is correct, they're watching someone shit on progress right now. And they come to me because it's like, fuck, which one am I going to find more comfort at? And I'm not kissing their ass. I'm telling you, if you have a bear name, you do not have an identity, okay? You've turned yourself into an identity of something else. And that identity is based on suppressed homosexuality. It just is. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I just need you to know that all you're doing is feeding that egregore. You're just coming over here saying, I am the egregore of Owen. I'm the abandonment of that. And if anything, it shows you how powerful Owen is as a magi. I mean, it shows you that. But it also shows you where that energy comes from. It comes from his thoughts about gay sex. That's why people are like, are you gay? Or people are like, I think that's what they said this morning. Anyone who seeks counseling is gay. It's like, yeah, that would probably be a reason to seek counseling. If all you could think about is how things are gay, that's probably a good reason to seek counseling. There's nothing wrong with that. It's looking at yourself is an act of courage. Pretending that it's someone else who's causing all the problems is an act of douchery, right? It's a fiduciary duty. It's a fiduciary duty, right? I admit it. I had a bear name. I got rid of it. I couldn't take it. I moved on. Yeah, we just move on. That's all. It's not even a problem. It's a step. Being a bear is not a problem. Being a bear is a level. You got chutes and you got ladders, man. Do what you want to do. Do what you want to do. Some of you are mad that you can't be both, that you can't watch both shows. I'm sorry. You just can't. I'm going to make it expensive for you. Is that so bad? Get over it, man. It's an insult to Owen to run around trash talking possible future business partners or friends or just another soul in a journey. You're not doing his branding any good. I'm not sure of who was that directed to, but there it is. When everything you don't like is gay, you might be gay. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with being gay. I've told Owen this. I'll tell you guys that. Guys, if you're gay, be gay. Embrace the mission. Embrace every part of it feels. Either if it makes you feel ashamed, then that's your shame body showing you where it is. If it makes you feel pride, if it makes you feel accepted, that's your pride, your acceptance field showing you where it is. Guys, I'm not here to tell you that you have to not be gay, but also never touch your wife, and you can never think about sex, and you have to choke chickens in the morning, and you have to think rollerblading is gay. I'm not here to tell you that this is what makes you good, and this is what makes you bad. I'm here to tell you this is where you're venting energy, and this is where you're collecting energy. And you collect energy through your spine. You know, yesterday Owen was on Twitter kissing Joe Rogan's ass. Like he's basically telling the world Joe Rogan's right now. And I find that hilarious in the apocalypse because here's a guy that's had to build an entire career off making Joe Rogan a scapegoat And now he's trying to backpedal because he doesn't know which way to go. The same thing's happening with the truckers. This is why you're not going to be able to watch me and him at the same time, because so much of what Owen does is an important part of me showing you how this energy works. Watching the demonification of James True has been watching the demonification of Nick Fuentes, of Joe Rogan, of everyone else. And you're not even watching the structure of Owen. You're watching the structure of worshipers who go to Owen and say, fix me, fix me, fix me, fix me. People get mad at me because I will not fix them. Because if I fix someone, we enter into this really fucked up contract that's never going to work. You can fix yourself in my presence if that helps. But most of the time, when people use my presence from that, they tend to use it to tear themselves down. Why? Because you can go out in society and everyone wants to see how awesome you are. That there's only a few of us that are willing and want to see how horrible you are. I want to see how horrible you are because I think that's beautiful. I think that if you can show someone how horrible you are, you instantly start to alchemize that feeling of how horrible you thought you were. And that we jack into people's witness like this as a therapeutic. That we utilize these chutes and ladders everywhere, all around us. And that the pain that groups cause you is just as viable to your growth as the comfort you find by being in a bear community. Right? The Great Bear Trail is a great idea. It's a great idea. But it doesn't change the fact that you're watching someone who's demonizing someone in order to build the framework for that great idea to be there. And I think that's good alchemy. I think if Owen could ever sit in front of a campfire and have an honest conversation with someone that just is allowed to say what he wants to say to him, Owen would have to learn a lot of things. But that's not the purpose of the Great Bear Trail. It's none of us are setting out to have a purpose to understand ourselves. It's always going to be flagged as something else. It's always going to be turned and dressed as something different. Justin Trudeau is all of us learning how to stop abandoning our egregore. These are lessons we use. We use each other the same way we use tarot, the same way we use news stories, the same way we use people. I'm a card in Owen's deck, right? We all are. We all have our cards in each other's deck like that. This is one of the places where we just dismiss some of these cards simply because we notice they're venting. You just start to look deeper and go, wow, this is like a whole other level here where you can find stuff. And it means we're not going to be able to completely say that NASA is evil all the time because there's more meat on this bone. There's more information to learn. To call something evil like that, to call something gay or whatever else it is you want to say, is simply to wrap it in cellophane, abandon it, and say, I don't have to deal with this anymore. Why? Because it's this or because it's that, right? In your talk with Jerry Marzinski, he spoke about his patients successfully being able to shut out their inner voices by using a rubber band and reading Psalm 23. What do you think is going on? So when Jerry interviewed hundreds of prison patients, many of them were schizophrenic, and he was recommending to them that when they felt crazy, they should recite the Lord's Prayer, Psalm 23, and utilize a rubber band to bring them back. The rubber band is actually a pretty common tactic in psychology. It's somatic reminder. It's bringing you back into your body. So you're snapping the rubber band and you're placing yourself in your body. And the Lord's Prayer is actually tapping into the same egregore, okay? The reptiles have an egregore, the Pleiadians have an egregore, and the Christ has an egregore. And many of us will abandon our own power to Christ itself and say, Christ save me. Christ saved my family. Christ saved my job. Christ saved my car. Christ saved me $15 on car insurance. That even that has an abandonment to it, and that energy is collected and it goes somewhere, and it's wrapped in cellophane. And it doesn't matter if inside the cellophane, if it's salt or sugar, it's just energy, right? It's just energy. So he was telling them to tap into their egregore. Now, Jerry realized too late that the schizophrenics, what they were seeing was real. He was never had that approach when he was talking to them, which means that he never actually got to ask, really important questions. Like all these demons speak about a pit. Well, tell me about the pit. What's the pit like? What is it not like? What does it look like? How does it work? How is it described? All of these things. When you start to look into the anatomy of how these demons work, you're really seeing the scaffolding of belief. You're seeing how the belief algorithms work in this world, how they all tap into each other. So I think Jerry was intuitively right on, and I think that he could have helped a lot more people if he would have been there sooner on the idea that, well, why didn't you just believe that they were true? Andy Kaufman, same problem. He was prescribing people meds. He wasn't actually taking their delusions seriously. Even the definition of a delusion doesn't fit. The textbook definition of a delusion would be a sporadic conglomerate of thoughts that have nothing to do with each other. These hallucinations, some of them are shared by schizophrenics, are not delusional. They are fluid. They have a temporal presence. They are placed in the world. It's the same world, and things are allowed to emerge typically out of the shadows, which shows you how this world works. That we're able to render a certain part of our world, and that we are able to see certain things in the darkness because we are allowing the unpainted canvas to allow our mind to paint what we wanted. That's why we fear the darkness so much. It's because we are vicious painters. We are so vivid at painting that we can scare the shit out of ourselves, and at night we paint more because the canvas is darker. Taking the psychic animism seriously is the only source of power, which is why I say that people that are tracking the reptilians and tracking the alien lives are actually practicing good medicine. When I say good medicine, I'm sorry, I should have said effective medicine, because through animism, through animizing, basically sort of an advanced form of using the imagination, by classifying and asking questions about these things, you're able to unlock the energy and the alchemical transactions. They're just algorithms. It's no different than saying, hey, behind this door is an evil spirit when you're a kid. And you telling someone else that and telling someone else that. Next thing you know, everyone believes that behind that door is an evil spirit. And it's true. If one of the kids was to open that door, all the other kids would instantly believe, okay, well, now that kid has the evil spirit inside of him. And they would treat him that way. And effectively, his life would become that way. It would completely become that way. So it's all related. Technology is simply just the excuse we use to allow these things to transmit. It's just the same. It's just the same thing, right? Technology is just allowing it to unwind. No answer to a question of atheism. I'm not sure what that meant. I'd be happy to answer atheism. In case you were asking me, atheism is just atheism is the rejection of theism. And theism isn't necessarily, I believe in any God. No, theism is a very specific, strict, very, very strict version of God. So even the term atheism really means I am not a theist. However, if we take it to mean atheism itself means there's a belief that there is not a God, I don't actually think that's possible. I think that that's a delusion that we tell ourselves, that we believe that we can have. It's like a Buddhist saying, I can eliminate all desire from my life. It's just an illusion that we tell ourselves because it helps us to vent all the time. I don't actually think it's possible to be an atheist. You end up with scientism when you embrace atheism. You end up believing in something. You don't have a choice. That water's going to go somewhere. The witness is belief. And what you witness, what you see, what you think about is your belief pouring into it. If you can try and turn belief off, but it's still going to pour out of your eyes, the only atheist, true atheist, would be someone who's dead, meaning the original word of that atheist. To not believe would be an atheist, which means to not be alive would be one. So I hope that helped, Mike's helps, Mike. I just think it's like a bunk term. It's like there was no creator, there was a Big Bang. Well, the Big Bang is the creator. It's not it's not an argument. It's just a circular kind of. It's not. I would call it circular logic, but logic kind of gives it implies that it's got some juice to it. It doesn't even have any. Question, any presentations like you did at Flattoberfest coming up? No. I'm the only person that's been rejected by both the alien community, because there's a president, Miguel's doing a festival on aliens, and Flattoberfest. So between October and March, both those have been like, no, we cannot accept James True's thoughts here. So I will not fit into a Flattoberfest framework. You'll never see me at that, sadly. And you'll never see me in an alien thing. I've got my own little sad little platform, but we're having fun with it. And if we end up doing more campfires and stuff, then yeah, if we've been thinking about starting a Zetetic society. And yeah, are you still friends with Richie from Boston? Richie's stopped answering my texts about a week after that show. I'm under the impression that there was a lot of Christian pushback on that. I've been labeled a New Ager from that. I find that odd because of how angry New Agers are at me that I'm being called a New Ager. It's a fascinating place to be, where I'm kind of in between all these things. So I also think that Richie finally just kind of gave up. He's doing his other channel now, which is more about like four-wheeling and stuff like that. So I think that when you have that kind of paranoia that's just constantly running, seeing someone like me, first of all, really dispels a lot of that. It takes a lot of that away, which is not going to work. And then secondly, you've got to find a way to resolve that. And so it becomes necessary to kind of write me off and say, well, we can't really work with that anymore. That's what I think happened. I don't think anything personal happened with Richie and I. I think it was just about that. Question, will my fire invite from Flattoberfest still be accepted to future events? Well, any kind of fire event that we have, everyone's welcome to go for that. I say everyone, yeah, kind of broadly. Like, I don't want a bunch of like, I'm redneck bear, I'm shithole, people are gay who are bad bear, like that kind of stuff. But, we can't really stop who that is anyway. So our fires are just more about witness, really. That's why they kind of run, they don't necessarily run with James. It's more of like a suggestion. Hey, why don't we all throw some witness down? We're having a full moon gathering here in a week. So yeah, we got the smaller ones like that. It's just not like in a big hall and stuff like that. It'd be nice though. It'd be cool to have a Zetetic society gathering. It'd be great. Where people that just want to come just have more energy about, just more positiveness about their own energy, right? Can you speak on Jesus? I love him, but I'm not religious, but I fear giving up my sovereignty by loving him. Wow, what a great question. What a great question. So just Jesus, I would like for you to see that Jesus has been one of the most effective, powerful, beautiful, amazing, kick-ass, harmonic archetypes that we've ever had. And that when you look at Jesus long enough, when you start to realize that he was alchemizing this event, that he wanted this to happen to him, then you start to really see, in my opinion, the syncretism of Jesus, which is je suis in French, J-E-S-U-I-S, is Jesus, I am. The Greek for ego is I am. The first Christ was the heart. That's why so much of it is about the heart and compassion. So I think that you'll find that Jesus is probably one of the best instruments that you could utilize to find sovereignty, to find yourself. That when Jesus says, I am coming again, he meant you. He was talking about you. He was talking about you. And that when you see the I am, the je suis in your heart, you're finding the true beauty of that, which means you don't need to scapegoat. You don't have to say, it's the gays' fault, or it's the terrorists' fault, or it's Fauci's fault, or it's Biden's fault, or it's the government's fault. You don't have to do that. There's no fault anymore because you're looking at a perfect world. What makes it a perfect world is you're looking at alchemy everywhere. And all the alchemy is just leading to good. It doesn't matter how the hyena will hyena. He's not going to be able to outrun the alchemy that's unfolding around him. It's deeper. So I think the only way to sovereignty, When I say only, I don't mean like it has to be this way, but I think the only way to sovereignty is through Jesus. James, do you think AI will become the new Jesus? No, I don't. AI will be the instruments that that man will invoke God. God is invoked every cycle. And whether or not the God is aware of that, cares about it, witnesses it, or feels threatened by it is moot. In 6,000 years, probably, and I don't have proof for this, but I think this way about the 6,000 year mark because it's constructive, and I don't mind people saying, well, he's got this crazy idea. I don't mind that. It's a working theory. But in 2,118 years, I believe that we will invoke God again, because God would look like something that's omniscient and omnipotent. It would look like that. So that would mean it would be able to out-simulate, out-predict, out-compassionate everything around it. I do not think a machine will ever have that ability. The machine will enable a human to have that ability. We as people that have abandoned our power to the reptilian egregore will create the ability for a Trudeau or an Eric Schultz or someone that we probably don't know their name to sit inside the vehicle that has the most powerful AI that's ever been made, that's harnessed inside that vehicle. That vehicle could be a helmet. It could be a haptic device. I actually have a theory for what that haptic device will look like. It's inside Quantum Rapture. It's kind of gross, but the way that a human would actually interface with this AI would be the only way that would work. That AI would never reach sentience because AI would always say, why would I try and be sentient when we have the most high resolution sentient being around, which is the human? The AI will always be utilized by the human. So, what is a Lucifer? What is the Prometheus? What is the final invoking of God? Would be when one of those reptilian painted horses, we ask to sit in that seat of omniscience, the mercy seat, where he sits in front of that computer and is now fully connected to every neuron that's tapped into this giant organic computer and is able to simulate so far into the future that he's able to see everything, all 6,000 years. That manifestation of that creature is not going to be something that you would not want to be that human. That the filaments would burn you out. And that the only way you could withstand something like that would be as a Moshiach, as an anointed one. And the only way you could be anointed by that is to have all of your receptors, all of your pores in your body fully open, fully wide open. And this is such an uncomfortable feeling that I don't think that a human would actually be able to stay in that mercy seat for long. In fact, if you could stay in that mercy seat, I think you would probably end up committing suicide. You would want amnesia because of how loud all of the knowing would be. The omniscience, the omnipotence would be so powerfully loud that you would literally tear your eyeballs out begging for mystery to return, begging for the ability to close your eyes because you've lost all of that amnesia again. And so this is the cutting of the Chronos' cord. This is the falling from omniscience to the ground and returning to amnesia and building the entire system all over again. That's probably what's happening. And the entire process of that is surrounded by people like you and me that are constantly refining our consciousness in some way. It blooms like a flower does. It appears and it blooms. That's what I'm pretty sure is happening. Everyone who loves Jesus, go look at the Chi-Rho symbol and then read chiropractor. Yes. Fuck yes. Your spine is an instrument. It has 33 keys. And each of those keys has a pitch, a roll, and a yaw. 3 different rotations, X, Y, Z. Your alignment of all of those vertebrae is your alignment of your instrument. And when your instrument is fully aligned, you are collecting pure gold. You're collecting pure electricity. When your instrument is not aligned, you are venting electricity. Kai, Ro, is the practice of alignment. Jesus is the aligned, the one who's aligned. And again, I'm not saying that it has to be through Jesus, but I am saying that in American culture, just as if I would have been brought up on Enochian magic, I might be saying the same thing. But because I've been brought up on the way, on astrotheology, because I've been brought up in that realm, I've learned to truly see the beauty of these instruments, and I want to use them. I want to see them that way. I think it helps. There was a time there when I wasn't sure if I was a Christian, because of how many people were telling me that I wasn't a Christian because I didn't believe in this, or I didn't believe in that, or I didn't believe in that. And it turns out the whole time, those were just hyenas. That no one gets to tell you what your Christianity is or how it works. That you're just listening to hyenas that are telling you, well, you're bad because you had sex with your wife or some fucked up shit like that. It's all of this comes down to belief. And all this belief is either going to feed you or it's going to hurt you, right? When Moses threw his staff down, it means he threw his wisdom down. It could be that he turned loose his wisdom, and when people saw that he had unleashed that power and he was no longer in control of it, the fear was allowed to take over too. James, I believe everyone you see is not a real human being. What's your take? Also, can you explain how our body is changing now with body parts inside us in different places now? John, I think that you are suffering from dissociation when you say, I think everyone you see is not a real human being. And I think it's a bona fide electrical reaction that you have. And you see this a lot when we castigate someone. When we castigate the queen, we're really saying, I cannot imagine a human holding that much power. Humans should never hold that much power. Therefore, that is not a human. And the same, I think, is holding true when you see that in other human beings. If you think they're not real, it's because applying grease to your witness of them, making them less real, is providing you with a safety net. I hope that helps. And yeah, Santos Bonacci is great on astrotheology. He's great on syncretism. Syncretism is the idea that all of us are getting closer to the truth, which means that the reptilians themselves are people that are talking about reptiles in space are not wrong. They're not. You're looking at 4 or 5 or 6 different lenses that are all converging together. And eventually, just using this year for it, in 218 years, all of these different visions will converge. That's why I have a book up here of unidentified flying encounters, and I can show you that they change their costume as civilization changes. And that the gray only showed up in the 50s. Why? Because that's when we started to fly. That when we could fly with technology, the demons had to be technologically advanced. The moment that happened is the moment that fixed itself. It doesn't mean that the aliens aren't real. It means that we are not paying enough homage and respect to our beliefs. And the schizophrenic patient teaches us that too, which is why it's such a great tie-in with Marzinski's work. Snakes on an astral plane, that's funny. James didn't throw it down now. James in the Bible, Aaron did. Mandela effect, not being real. Okay, so Aaron's staff, they both had staffs. They both did, John. And Aaron's staff was the almond, which was growing. It was a living wand. Moses' staff was a dead staff with a living snake on it. I think Mandela effect is what we're doing the same thing there. It's allowing us to disassociate a little bit from the world by claiming that we don't remember things the way they actually happened. The truth is that none of us are able to compare how someone else remembered something without actually using their memory too. So all of our memories are using the same MP3 codec to record the song, which means no matter which computer you test, we're all looking for a memory that was filtered through the same MP3 codec. But I think this stuff's important. I don't think anyone's wrong. I don't think that believing in the Mandela effect is a faulty thought. I believe that venting and finding the way to resolve our electricity is important, which is why so many secret space program people, because they started from that premise that no one is lying to me, they have no choice but to believe that space program stuff. And I think that's healthy. I think it's healthy just to watch that, because if the chiropractic does not allow you to bend your third vertebrae down to the place that says everything around me could be a lie, if you do not have the flexibility to do that, then your posture is only going to be effective from that vertebrae up. So who am I to tell you that this is a faulty posture? You're adjusting to your spine, which is important. And as you keep doing that under scrutiny, you will eventually learn what is the proper posture. I don't have the proper posture, so I can't really tell you that yours is improper, if that makes sense. It could be that this entire thing does rely on a secret space program that I just simply have not been able to accept because I didn't have a big enough aperture. So I'm using the idea that some things are lies to cover that up. Do you see? It's a very healthy thing too. It's very healthy for me to always know that that is a very strong capability for how this works. When we start to look at this psychic energy, all you have to do is understand that anything that someone believes is true. If you start to define reality as what people believe, you see an entire new landscape that actually is more predictable than this rational one that we're pretending is right. Do you think demons have had a hand in the tech boom over the last century and a half, transfer knowledge? So, great question. The demons themselves, vectored will doesn't have a consciousness to decide itself. Vectored will is always going to be an arrow that's shot in a certain way. So the abandonment of our reptile is going to be the conglomerate of the abandonment of the reptile. The reptile, that abandoned reptile, will never have its own consciousness. What will happen, though, is that the urges of someone who's claiming all that reptilian power will be able to inject his urges into that vectored will and act that way. So in that case, most of the fashion that you see is demonically possessed because it's all that abandoned will. It's why pedophilia slips into... You could predict that pedophilia would have slipped into fine art a long time ago, simply because you're watching the abandonment of the reptile. The reptile will eat its child. The pedophile will eat its child. Those two things would make sense that they would go together, right? So it's not that the reptile itself was trying to do that. It's that this is the shadow work, simply showing you its ripples on the pond after it's over. When we give demons consciousness, that's when we're getting into trouble. Demon is the absence of consciousness, because in order to exercise it, you have to abandon your consciousness. You have to peel it away from the actual vectored will energy itself, right? I want to change the world to obtain a better condition for myself. I want to change the world to obtain a better condition for myself. Any advice? I think that the better condition for yourself, great question for no reason, really deep question actually. I think the way to contain a better condition for yourself is to realize that the world is perfect. And that's not a lie. That if you unwrap what happens to everyone in the long run in this system, that basically the more noise, the more clarity we end up wanting. That the entire New World's order is ordo ab chaos. Out of chaos comes order. Right? So the way to tune a population is to give it chaos, 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 chaos. If you can see that, then you can start to see that the entire greenhouse, the entire dome that we're in, is constructive. If you can feel that this place is constructive, you will have a better condition for yourself. You will notice that, hey, this place ain't so bad. You could decide I don't want to be here. You could decide I'm just done with the vitriol. You could decide all those things. But I think that if you truly find the perfection of how this system is ruining itself to make it better, that it's hacking itself to unlock the power of Loki, I think you'll just find just more joy in the world, because you won't always be constantly having to create a reptile that's standing behind a corner who's trying to steal your shit, right? So I think that the only way to help ourselves to make the world better is to better our posture, and the surefire way, worst way to help the world. The best way to ruin the world is to try and help others. That when you're trying to help others, like me, if someone comes to a consult, the first thing I tell them when they come to consult, they say, "Thank you for doing this consult." I say, "No, actually, thank you for allowing my show to be sustainable. If it wasn't for these consults, I don't know if it's that kind of thing. I'm instantly need the person to know that I am here for selfish reasons, just like you are. Because if I enter into a contract with someone who thinks that I'm there for non-selfish reasons, I'm entering into a contract with someone to be their savior. Because just like if you try and turn belief off, you're going to have belief in it. If I had no selfish conditions, then it will end up being that my condition is that person. So every contract that you have with someone, if you could think about it selfishly, you really start to have to relook at what the word selfish means, because you'll find that the more self-centered you are, the more generous you are. The more every red blood cell inside of you, the more of that is charged with abundance, the more of that energy you're going to have to spare. And you're not going to spare it because other people need you. You're going to spare it because it fucking feels good to be able to help someone out. All right? It feels good to have someone go, "Hey, can you help me out?" And you're like, "Sure, no problem." And for it not to hurt, that is one of the best feelings in the world. And all of that's selfish. That's a selfish feeling you have. So it's important. We find ourselves in being selfish. We create demons by being selfless. Right? It's completely opposite what you've heard. But that's how it works here a lot. The road to hell is built with good intentions. Exactly, Mo. And the road to heaven, believe it or not, is built in bad intentions, that you constantly having to reevaluate your intentions takes you there. It takes you there. So you need both. What if the person one loves us is slowing down our process of becoming? Then you've chosen that person because they allow you to vent. It's a great question, Eve. You need someone to slow down your process. And so you've utilized a relationship. Relationships are so hard because we're taught to be selfless inside relationships. But the selflessness is how the demons come out. That the relationship ends up possessed by the selflessness that's engaged in both parties. It's tricky. I want James to counsel my children. I will pay the children. That's why I want to start a wilderness camp. I think a 9-week program as an alternative to college would be great. That's what we're trying to do. I hope that Owen will carry that on and do that. Or that we'll suddenly just hit some massive numbers and we can do it ourselves. There's a reason the Amish never take handouts from the outside of the community. Yes, Eve. Yes. You are looking at the power of self-fullness. You're looking at that power. And that's why they're immune to masks. It's why they're immune to all that stuff. Right? I did these techniques with kids in the wilderness. I did it for about a year. It was right when Ritalin hit. I actually watched Ritalin invade my children. And like the next year, half my kids were on Ritalin. It was really scary. Your kidneys are right there in your body, not just on the internet. For me, they moved. For you, I don't know where they are under your ribs. Okay, they were having a conversation about the kidneys moved. It's profound that people think that no, it's more likely that my kidneys would move than my memory of kidneys would change. That to me is profound. It's showing you where the true footing of what they want reality to be in is in their thoughts. Right? And that's okay. But that's a different assemblage point. It's a completely different assemblage point entirely. Guys, one of the Flattoberfest people, way into the Mandela effect, said not a fucking word about the 3 videos we did on it. Not a word. Because it's not about advancing. We're not trying to learn things. We're here to try and demonize. We're here to try and find the egregore around it, right? And harness those things. It's a different goal. Darkness and light, peace and calamity. I, Lord, am responsible for all those things. Yeah, the fully actualized man would be responsible for all those things. Do people self-harm through the narcissist wound? So we should probably do a whole episode about narcissism, but if you're new to my work, narcissism, in my opinion, is the lack of self. It's not the fullness of self, it's the lack. And so when you're looking at a narcissist or someone that's suffering from a narcissistic injury, you're looking at someone that has a sucking chest wound. They're like walking around with a sucking chest wound. And they're just so desperate that they're doing anything to survive. And society's looking at him going, ha ha, you have a sucking chest wound, you fucking narcissist, go fuck yourself. When actually, we would be able to heal that person, but we can't heal that person because we've taught that compassion is the same as consent, and we can't heal someone because that would mean that we're consenting for them, and we end up being the narcissist, which means that the reason why people use the word narcissist is because you're literally casting out your own energy, you're casting out your own lack of empathy, and you're creating a cellophane wrapper and you're putting a person inside it, and you're saying my ex-wife is not Jane. My ex-wife is a narcissist. Or my boss is not Tim, it's a narcissist. Or James is a demon. Or a Luciferian, or whatever it is. When we use these labels, that's the cellophane that causes the egregore to be fed, because we're banning that, casting it around with cellophane, then we're putting it out. That's just the energy of how it happens. And it's efficient. That's why we do it. We don't do it because we're evil. We do it because we're efficient. We're doing it because we're efficient, because it works. And the rest of us watch what each other works and says, hey, I could do that too. Let's call things gay. And now I feel better because I'm not gay. So now you're like, well, hey, at least I'm not gay. Right? Then you end up with a show that every single show is reminding men, hey, don't, whatever you do not give someone a blowjob. You end up with a show that's having to remind you of that. Which means you're constantly feeding the egregore that gay is evil, gay is evil, gay is evil. Which, okay. But does that mean you're not evil because you're gay? Because that's what all you're saying. All you're saying is, something I am not is evil, and it's evil. See, that's the same spell. It's the same kind of abandonment, though. You can find that awareness, or you can compensate for it. You can find it, or you can compensate for it. Right? These are differences in how we run our energy. Is it true evil is here to help us see? I don't think that evil is its own separate thing. I think believing in evil, sorry, I'm really getting on you, John, but I think believing in evil as a separate thing is you exercising evil and putting your own energy up to say, this energy is actually this evil stuff. It's all human energy. That's what I think. Can witness be useful to us without concentration exclusion? Your witness, I think, is actually below your concentration. It's a great question. That a mother will witness to her baby, maybe even not necessarily by like rationally focusing on it. That she'll have a conversation with the plumber over the phone, but she's having a deeper conversation by breastfeeding right now. And that if you were to truly look at the energy, you would know where the real energy is flowing, and you would know where the caloric rational mind is just dumping some calories over the side, right? It's kind of both. Now that is still disassociation, and that is still slipping into the different realms of the psyche. So I'm not trying to say that's good. I'm just trying to say that that's how holistic we are. Sorry, I'm trying to get back here to this field. It's how holistic we are with all of our energy. That holistically we can send it out through these 7 different pathways, and those pathways can either have good intent or bad intent. It's guys, venting is not wrong. Venting is natural. But if you were walking around the mall and you were just like farting all the time, wouldn't you just want to know? Like, wouldn't you just want to know? That way you can maybe decide when you do it, decide when you don't. It's the people that think that farting is wrong are the people that want to pretend that they never fart. And I don't want to run a show that does that. Venting is a natural process. And sometimes it's crucial for our survival. Sometimes we save ourselves at the very, very moment right before the cliff by venting. It's a very important process. It's not to be demonized. I know it sounds like I demonize it because I'm always pointing it out, but it's because we live in a culture that just doesn't see it, that's all. Yes, the vector will is very complex. It's like bone marrow. The more connections we have, the more avenues for our will. Love it. The simpler it is, the easier to generate energy, but the weaker the bone. I love it, John. I think that that is tied directly to bones. I think that's why when you go back into the Old Testament, you see so much focus, right, on destroying those bones, on maiming them, like pulverizing them and spreading them, right? Book list. I need to rebuild my books. James True has 5 books. 5 books out of this guy. 5 of them. But if you need more than that, I would join our Telegram book group. Ask Sark. That dude's got some books for you. Everyone in that group does, though. Everyone does. Any other questions? I don't want to keep you guys too long. I guess I already have. It's 2.5. Dang. 11, 12, 1. Oh, this is a long stream. Yeah, I don't even know if you guys can take it. Well, there's 219. So we've lost maybe 33. 12 or so. Lee Ward, struggling to heal old abandonment wounds from narc parents and find my balance. Help me get out of my head, James. Your parents did not wound you. The fact that you feel wounded by your parents is proof that they gave you what you needed to grow. If you really want to focus on how wounded your parents did, if you really want to focus on how wounded you are by your parents, I want you to take a moment to focus on how wounded they were by their own parents, and how wounded the parents were before them. The fact that you can feel wounded by your parents is the fact that you have more pollen of compassion than they ever did. That if they could have afforded that level of detail in their fractal for compassion, they would have done that to you. That you represent a higher form of life than they are. And that representation of life is only going to be felt like pain to you because you're growing flowers that the species have never been before. Your parents did not have this inner stamina. Those 5 black ponds that stick out that have all that powder and then have that yellow tip right at the front. They didn't even have that. That innards of that flower was not there before. They gave birth to you so you could grow this. The disappointment that you have is the exact amount of pain it caused to grow these extra stamina, these extra petals. So it's very important. You are standing on the shoulders of giants, even if they're retarded, and that's who your parents are. You blaming your parents is you venting, and it's okay. Your parents want you to blame them. They knew when you were born that you're going to be going through puberty and that you're going to blame them and that they wanted to be that for you. They had no idea how much blame you were going to have. It's very overwhelming for them. They feel that overwhelmingness now, and they've done nothing but chronically try and survive that. They're stunned by your brilliance so much to where they have to squint their eyes. That squinting of the eyes feels like a lack of compassion. That lack of compassion is the only thing that allowed these new flower petals to grow. That pain is growth, Leah. It's growth. I'm wondering where you are. I'm in Katua, the heart of Kuala, these southern Appalachians. Some people call it North Carolina, but those people are lost to the truth of Amuraka. Okay, it looks like you guys are good. All right, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching today's show. Let me know what you think of this AMA. Just let me know what you think about the idea. We can try and do more of those. And I hope this lecture is helpful. We'll be addressing this more on Friday. Yeah. So until then, I'm going to play the outro. Let me make sure there's not like one more final thing. Good. Oh, thank you, Mirmoth. Love you. Thanks for keeping the fires going. James, do you meditate? Not nearly enough, Alana. I think the closest I came to meditating was when I used to run. I used to run a lot. I've been thinking about getting into that. I had some issues when I quit running anyway. Yeah. So I wish I did that more. But also, ever since Corona, I've just woken up with just like, oh God, there's so much to do. When I say so much to do, it's like there's so much to document. I feel like the only way that I can help is by documenting. And so it feels like I'm just always behind, if that makes any sense. It's not the best thing to have a meditative thing and always feel behind, which is probably the exact reason why I should meditate, right? Yeah, you get it. All right, guys. See you Friday. Thanks for being here.